It's very easy for consistency to turn into complacency. So I'm not saying complacency, I'm saying consistency, meaning that you show up, you give your best, you test, you fail, you learn, you improve, and you re-enter. That's consistency. Complacency is where you show up and you do the same thing day in, day out. And really, instead of the cycle of success, test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter, you use the cycle of failure. Test, fail, and re-enter. Hey there, my friend, Chad Reyes. I'm so excited to be on the Leadership Table podcast with you. And today we're going to be talking about something that I love the concept of it, but I also love how practical it is. And I've been sharing with leaders on these 3 ROIs. And if I could be honest with you, I've been working through it and struggling through it on my own. And, that's the amazing thing about talking about these 3 ROIs, because when you hear ROI, and for you and a little bit of background for me, I went to business school. I went to Binghamton University. I got an economics and business degree. And one of the things that you always heard was return on investment, ROI, return on investment. And I think in the world that we're living in today is that we all know that an ROI is important for a return on investment. We all would agree that that's how you take care of bills. That's how you build a life for yourself. But there's 2 other aspects that I've been working through really probably over the last 20 years, and really is this 3 ROIs, the return on investment, which we're all very familiar with and we're going to unpack today. But then there's the second one, which is the return on your influence. And then the third is the return on your impact. So let's talk a little bit about the return on the 3 ROIs. And this is the one thing, every leader measures something. I think you would agree that we either measure that the lives that are being transformed, we measure the profit that we made, the revenue that we had that year, the number of new clients, XYZ, we measure something. But the question is are we measuring the right things? And, one of the things that I love about business is I love that you get to do business and empower people and help them and their organizations grow like yours. But you also get to do it and you get to see the return on impact and return on influence and get a return on investment. So I want to share with you that when you have an ROI gap, that's a return on investment, influence, and impact gap. You achieve profit, but you failed to build people. Now think about that for a moment. How many times have you seen or have you been involved where the organization grows financially, but the people around them never grow? Because they're not developing people. They're just developing to get the job done, and that's it. So you achieve profit, but you failed to build people. That's an ROI gap. That's where I want to be compared to where I am. Or you gain visibility, but you lose your credibility. Meaning, I know so many people that they're getting their business in front of so many people, or they built a phenomenal offering on social media, but when you meet them, it's not them. And all of a sudden now they got visibility, but they lost their credibility because who they are is actually different than what you're seeing in their social media, because they're giving you all the good things, but they're not showing you everything. And then the last one is you create results, but you leave no lasting impact. One of the things with the younger generation that's coming into the workplace is they're looking to make a difference. And the organizations that can help them and show them how they can make a difference are going to be the ones that get them to be part of their team to do something great. Years ago, I know when I first came out, right out of college, I went right into business. Everything was profit, grow. And the generation that we're working with, the generation that's coming into the workforce, the 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, the Gen Zs, right? They want to know how what they do makes a difference. So can you get results and have a lasting impact? As we break down these 3 ROIs, I want us to look at everything we're doing through these 3 lenses. As you prepare for the upcoming year, How does these three ROIs impact it? How does it help you think through some of the things that you're working through? And I can say this, and I'll just share this with total transparency. I haven't figured it out. I'm not perfect at it. But what I can say is I'm constantly working on improving. And that's the only thing I would ask of you is that you don't need to be perfect at it. You just need to start walking. And as you start walking, it gets a little bit clearer. You know, one of the things as a leader or communicator is when you share a message, everyone around you judges you based on that message. So I've gotten used to being judged on the messages that I share, but I can tell you this. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking you to take the 3 ROIs, start walking, and you'll refine it. And every day, every week, every month, every year, you'll get a little bit better. So let's jump in. Let's go a little bit further into it. So when you think of the 3 ROIs, the first one, return on investment, is about multiplying resources, not just managing them. Whew. You see, the difference between a leader and a manager is a leader grows something and a manager manages it and makes sure that it's maintained. See, the difference is as when we're going to get a return on investment, the greatest return on investment we can get is when we develop people, we develop them to be leaders, they become effective at what they do, and then they multiply the resources you've given them rather than just managing them. You know, so let's break this down. The definition here for return on investment that I'm using is how effectively you steward your resources, time, talent, and capital to create sustainable growth and measurable results. Think about that. Your time, your talent, and your capital. Are you a good steward of your time, your talent, and your capital? Because those are the 3 things that'll grow any organization. Those are the 3 things that'll help you get a return on your investment. I often say this to leaders. I said, if you show me 2 things, I'll know what matters to you. And they always laugh, but I really mean that. Show me your checkbook and show me your calendar. If your checkbook doesn't say growth is important, then it's just a dream. If your calendar doesn't show that growth is important and developing and growing to get a return on investment, then it's just a dream. And the thing that I've learned, because I've gone through some of these nightmares, the thing that I've learned is that if your dream doesn't have resources and time behind it, it turns into a nightmare. And eventually that nightmare becomes something that we have to live with the rest of our lives. So I just want to challenge you as you're going through the 3 ROIs, think about it through that lens. Am I putting time behind growing my organization and growing myself? Am I putting my checkbook behind it? You know, I often say this, you know, we're a leadership coaching company. We coach leaders, we coach business owners, we coach entrepreneurs, but I can tell the players from the pretenders. And this is how I can tell. Players put money behind what is important to them. Pretenders want the free stuff. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. All I'm saying is that if you're going to grow as a leader, you have to put time and money behind it. Let's jump here. There's 4 things that we want to do to get a return on investment. And like I said, I'm not doing all of them perfectly. Some of them I do well. Some of them we don't do well. But understand that these are the 4 things that I'm even looking at in my own business, in my own personal life. The first is this: we got to build systems that scale. You know, one of the tools that we've been working with in our coaches is building out something called the 5 levels of strategy. And these 5 levels of strategy are the different levels that each leader will walk through as they continue to develop and grow their organizations. And if you think about it, right, often many organizations are in the tactical. The tactical is the day-to-day, the week-to-week, and the month-to-month stuff. And most times on the tactical, we're really in the day-to-day and the week-to-week stuff. It's the stuff that we need to get done to keep the doors open, pay the bills, but we're never really growing the organization. We're never growing the people. We're never accomplishing the vision that we see because we're so focused on the day-to-day and the week-to-week stuff. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying to be aware of it, because when you move from level 1 to level 2, in level 2, what you do is you're actually now moving into the operational strategy. And that's where you're going quarter to quarter and year to year. And then you move to level 3, where you have a rolling 24 months that you're strategizing. And then you go to level 4, which is 2 to 5 years, and then 5 to 10 years. And level 5 is legacy, where you're going decade to decade, generation to generation. And why do I say that? Because if you're going to get a return on your investment, you need to build systems that are scalable. There are things that I do in my organization that doesn't make sense to many people. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because I'm not just thinking of today. I'm thinking of what does it look like in 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And some of the things that we're doing today is going to impact that. And my question to you is where you're at. What systems do you have to build so you can maximize ROI and be scalable for the next 12 months, 24 months, 60 months, 10 years, etc.? See, getting a good return on your investment requires systems that can scale. We got to build them, and we got to remember what I said before. We got to put time and money. If we put time and no money, we reduce the probability. If we put money behind it, but we don't put the time, we reduce the probability. When you put time and money, the probability goes through the roof. But let's look at the second thing. We got to invest in the right people. Now, I will tell you that this has been a struggle from the very beginning because I like people. I love people. I see more in people than sometimes they see in themselves. But as I've grown and as I've matured as a leader, and I would encourage you to do the same, is look at what's in front of you. Look at the people. Are they willing to put the time, the effort in to grow themselves? Because one of the things I'll tell you is this. If you invest in the wrong people, you will not have the time to invest in the right people. And once you start investing in the right people, you're going to see a tremendous return. I have people on our team that we have invested in, and we've seen such a return. And I can tell you this, my wife and I, we absolutely get a smile on our face and in our heart because we see them growing and developing as a leader. But you have to invest in the right people. I remember one time I'm at a conference and I'm talking, and it's a communication conference. And I basically say to the person, I said, if you invest resources in the wrong people, you'll never have the resources to invest them in the right people. That's the reason why getting a return on investment requires you putting it into the right people. But putting it into the right people is also identifying the right people on the front end. You got to identify the people on the front end to know if they're the right people. And once you know that they're the right people, then just give them your best. Invest in them, develop them, grow them, become their cheerleader. Because you see something in them and you know that they can accomplish greater things. That's the second thing. First is build systems at scale. Second, invest in the right people. Let me give you the third. Track what matters. Why do I say what matters? Because I've tracked things that don't matter. They're called vanity statistics or vanity metrics. And the reason why you track them is because you want to be active in tracking stuff. But instead of tracking the things that actually move the needle, the things that make a difference. Now, I know I'm probably like you in some instances where you probably are tracking things to say you track them. But what are the 5 things that if you really tracked and you really move that needle would significantly grow your business? And I just want to encourage you. Let's identify what are the things that we need to track that matter so we could drive up our return on investment. That's the third one. Track what matters. And then let me give you number 4. Number 4 is reinvest strategically. Now you may say, Chad, when you say reinvest strategically, what do you mean? I mean reinvest strategically. I mean be very articulate. And, I have this concept called refined thinking. And refined thinking is this. You take an idea, and then you refine the idea so it gets better and better and better and better. And every time you take that idea and you refine it, it gets a little bit better the next time. What I mean by refine your strategic thinking and how you're going to reinvest, what are the things that you want to put your resources behind? What are the things that you're getting the greatest return on? And then think about it and say, okay, where do I want to reinvest strategically? Because every time, as a business owner, as a leader, every time you reinvest back into the business, or back into your people or back into the systems and structures, what you're saying is tomorrow's going to be better. When I look at an organization and I see no reinvestment back into an organization, and all I see is them trying to maximize the dollar without strategically reinvesting back in, whether that's systems and processes, whether that's developing their people with leadership, whether that's developing AI solutions to go into their business. When I see a company that's not reinvesting back into their business, I recognize that they're not looking in the future. They're not thinking of what the future may look like. They're just trying to maximize their return on investment for today and only for today. And today may look bright, but tomorrow may get dull because you're not thinking in foresight. Remember before I was talking about the 5 levels of strategy where we had, we had tactical and then operational, then strategic, then foresight, then legacy. Those are the 5 levels, right? To be in strategic and to be in foresight, we got to be thinking forward. We got to be looking. And we got to be looking, where do we reinvest capital? Where do we reinvest time to get greater returns on our investment? So that's the first ROI. Many of us have heard that. But let's now talk about the next ROI, is getting a return on influence. And this is how I define it. It's about multiplying trust, not just your reach. When you get a return on your influence, it's because you've built trust. You've built trust with people. You've built trust with your clients. You've built trust with your network. You've built trust with your vendors. That is getting a return on influence, because the influence you have is because you have trust with the people. And then when you think about it, when you erode that trust or when someone else erodes that trust, it becomes harder because the return on influence is not there. So I want to talk about this as multiplying trust. And think of this, the level of trust, credibility, authority you build through consistent character, communication, and contribution. Sorry, I lost my slide. The level of trust, credibility, and authority you build through consistent character, communication, and contribution. Influence isn't about position or popularity. It's about the weight of your word and the consistency of your example. It's the compound interest of integrity when people choose to follow you, not because they have to, but because they want to. I want to share with you something that we're doing. About a year and a half ago, we started it. I'd encourage every business to do it. My wife is the chief relationship officer. And what we do from time to time is we get together and we look at the relationships that we have in our business and we say, how do we add value to those people? And it may look different for every relationship. For some relationships, it may be introducing them to someone. For other relationships, it may be getting them in the room. For other relationships, it may just be spending time with them. But how do you maximize relationships? And I don't mean manipulate relationships. I actually mean add value to them. You see, I've had relationships that have fallen apart. I've had relationships that have thrived. And the ones that always thrive are the ones that people put effort into it. And when you have a return on influence, how do you put effort and intentionality behind developing relationships so that you could multiply your trust and add greater value to those people? I want to give you 4 things that we could talk through. The first thing is leading with consistency. One of the greatest gifts as a leader you and I can bring to the table is where our people can just see our consistency. Hey, Chad shows up. He's going to be doing this on this day. That consistency tells people something. Now, this is the thing that you got to be careful with, because if we want to return on influence, we got to be careful that consistency is not looked at as complacency. Don't miss what I just said. It's very easy for consistency to turn into complacency. So I'm not saying complacency, I'm saying consistency, meaning that you show up, you give your best, you test, you fail, you learn, you improve, and you re-enter. That's consistency. Complacency is where you show up, you do the same thing day in, day out. And really, instead of the cycle of success, test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter, you use the cycle of failure. Test, fail, and re-enter. That's complacency because you just got used to the routine, but you're not seeing fruit from it. So as leaders, the first thing that we can do to get a return on influence is lead with consistency. Let me give you number 2. Communicate with clarity. Why am I bringing this one up? I've seen so many very good leaders, and now hear me out. I've seen very good leaders that haven't communicated their message well. And because they haven't communicated their message well, their people don't understand what they're saying. And because the people don't understand what they're saying, there's no clarity. And clarity, as my friend Chris says on our team and coach, he said, clarity is kindness. So I just would encourage you, communicate with clarity. And what do I mean by that? To get a return on your influence, become a better communicator. One of the things, and my wife and business partner, she asks me this all the time. She's like, how are you able to communicate that message in the way that you did? It's so clear. And I tell her all the time, Danielle, I've refined my thinking. For many years, for 20 years, I've taken ideas and I've done layered, refined thinking, where I take an idea and I'll refine it. And next month I refine it. And the month after that, I refine it and just gets a little bit better and a little bit better every week. And when I communicate it, then you're feeling the process of me working on refining it. Every leader has to refine their communication. Every leader has to communicate with clarity so that their people can buy in and understand clearly what they're being asked. And the better you do it, the better I do it, the greater buy-in we get with our people, because now they're able to say, hey, I understand what Chad said. I understand why he's thinking that. Too many people, they share the idea the second it's in their mind and they haven't refined it yet. They haven't even thought through it. So then when their people are asking them, it doesn't make sense because they're just brainstorming with them at the table rather than bringing up something that has been refined. And I'm not saying that brainstorming at a table is a bad thing. It's a very good thing when you want creative planning sessions and you want to get ideas on the table. But when you want to communicate a message that you want people to understand and articulate and really grab a hold of, you got to communicate that with clarity. First, to getting a return on influence, lead with consistency. The second, communicate with clarity. Let me give you the third one. Build relationally. Build relationally. Why? Because relationships will move things forward. When you have a good relationship, things move fast. When you have a bad relationship, things slow down. They break down. They slow down, they break down, and eventually it's hard to repair. But if you build relationally, and build relationally is this, so just hear me. Build relationally is not just being friends with your people that you lead. Listen, being friends with people is great and it's amazing. And we do that. And I have that on our team. But your people, they need a leader that's going to lead them. They need someone who's going to have difficult conversations. They need someone who's going to be able to say, great job. Or, hey, listen, let's sit down and let's talk about that. But when you build relationally and you have a good relationship, you can share truth and love, and you can share love and truth. They're very different. I don't have time to unpack it. I've shared it on another podcast. But when you build relationally, you can do those two things really well. You can share truth in love and love in truth. Let's go to the fourth one. Multiply your message. The reason why you get a return on your influence is because the people that you're working with, they can take your message and now multiply it to others. And because you're consistent, because you're communicating with clarity, because you're building relationally, they'll take that message and they'll bring it further. They'll bring it farther than you could have ever done. Most organizations, though, they don't do these things, or they only do them partially well. And then that leader has to push everything forward all the time. Let me give you the third ROI. Is return on impact. My friend and mentor, John Maxwell, he said this. He said, a strong partnership divides the work and multiplies the impact. Think about that statement for a moment. When the work gets lighter and the impact gets greater, that means you're getting a return on impact. You see, too many organizations, too many leaders, too many businesses, they get involved in organizations, and I've done this, I could tell you this, I've done this terribly, but I've also done it well in some instances, where you get a return on impact because the work gets lighter because you have the right organization with you and the impact gets greater. Or you have the right team members, so the work gets lighter, the impact gets greater. You have the right partners, work gets lighter, impact gets greater. But to do that, you really have to look at these four things. Before I share that though, the lasting difference your leadership makes in transforming the lives of people and culture beyond your personal or financial gain. When we look at the 3 ROIs, return on investment, we want to make sure we're being a good steward of our time, talent, and treasures, and our capital. We want to get a return on our influence. We want to make sure that the relationships and the people we've invested can influence more people because of your investment in them. And then the return on impact. Think of this for a moment. The lasting difference your leadership makes in transforming the lives of people and culture beyond your personal or financial gain. One of the greatest things, and one of the things that I will tell you that brings me the greatest joy today, is the ability to make a difference in an organization or a leader's life, and then they take that information, they bring it back to their people, and their people's lives get better, the organization gets better, they're able to make a better difference in the people's lives that they work with and they work for, and their clients. There's no financial gain in adding value to people's lives necessarily, or you shouldn't be doing it for that reason. However, when you do add value to people's lives, when you do sow into them, when you do sow into your clients, there is a return on impact. Let me give you this. Impact happens when your leadership stops being about you and what you achieve, and it starts being about what you awaken in others. Whew. Let me give you 4 things that you can do to get a return on impact. First is a share common vision. The reason why is if we don't have a common vision that we're all moving towards, what's going to happen is you're going to have competing visions. When you have a vision that is divided, so you have a divided vision, that's known as division. Division, a division, it's a death to the vision. So you need to have, as leaders, we need to have a shared common vision, something that we're all moving towards. And the reason is because we're all can agree that outcome we all want to see happen. That impact we all want to see happen. Let me give you the second thing. We want to empower ownership. One of the greatest things as a leader we could do is when we empower our people to take ownership and run with it. But I'm going to share this with you, and I'm just going to be real with you right now. I've seen and I've sat at tables where you have leaders around the table that are coming up with all their own visions, instead of the leader sharing the vision and then the people around the table saying, how do we accomplish that vision? Brainstorming and collaboration is so key. It is such a huge aspect of growing an organization, growing business, getting a return on investment, a return on your influence, and a return on your impact. However, if you go to a meeting and you're the leader and you don't have a vision of where you want it to go, I'm not saying a detailed plan. I'm not saying every strategy needs to be worked out. I'm just saying a clear vision, a shared common vision that you could rally your people around. What you're going to find is you're going to have 6 or 7 different visions around the table because everyone's going to have a vision for it. And that's going to be one of the hardest things you got to work through as a leader, just because now you're working through 7 different individual visions rather than one shared common vision. So you want to empower your people. You want to empower them to take ownership, but you want them to empower them to move towards that vision. Let's talk about the last two. Elevate others. To get a return on impact, we want to elevate others. You want to encourage them. You want to tell them job well done. But this is the thing you don't want to do. This is the thing you want to be real careful of. You do not want to share. You do not want to tell people that they're doing a great job in an area that they're not. Because you know what that does? That actually erodes their confidence. It erodes their character. It erodes their integrity. Because when I tell you, great job, so-and-so, great job, and you're not doing a great job, you look at it and you say, I know I'm not doing a good job, but you never verbalize it. So we want to elevate others and we want to encourage them in the things that they're doing great. Listen, John Smith, Mary Jones, XYZ, be very specific in what you want to empower them with. Hey, John, you're doing such a great job with developing the leaders on the team. I'm watching Mary, Frank, Ashley. I'm watching all of them grow, and I can see your investment in them. Very specific. Empower others. Elevate them. Encourage them. But also, when you have to bring loving truth, do it in a way that elevates them. Doesn't hit them over the head. And let me give you the last thing to get a return on impact. Do good. Do good. The work that you do matters. I say this often. When we get to work with growth-minded entrepreneurs, we get to work with corporate teams. I want to work with organizations that are making a difference and they're doing good. I'm not going to, and for the podcast, I'm not going to go through every industry, but our company is not going to work with organizations that are hurting people's lives, that are destroying people. And when I'm saying that, you could be thinking of industries that do that. Picture getting a return on impact and people's lives destroyed. They're like an oxymoron. You do good. Choose to do good so you can have a return on investment that you're excited about and that you can look in the mirror and say, I did a good job. You could have a return on your influence because you've led effectively and been consistent and sowed into people and the right people. And then you get a return on your impact because the things that you're doing, what you're doing is making a difference. And it's doing good in the world. It's making a difference. My friend, as you're going into this new year, as you're planning for your division, as you're planning for your company, as you're planning for your personal life, take these 3 ROIs, sit down, get a cup of coffee, get some tea, and just start thinking through them. Start thinking about return on investment. How do I get a greater return on investment in this upcoming year? How do I get a greater return on my influence in this upcoming year? And then how do I get a great return on my impact? My friend, I can tell you this, that as you do that, you're going to see not only are you going to be more fulfilled, not only is your organization going to be more profitable and more successful, but what you're going to do is you're going to develop leaders. And developing leaders is the greatest responsibility we have. So my friend, thank you for joining us. I often say this, that the Leadership Table podcast is where mature leaders have mature conversations. And today, you and I, we just had a mature conversation. So I just want to encourage you, keep leaning in, keep refining your thinking, and watch what this upcoming year is going to do for you. God bless you. Thank you for being on the journey with us. I'm so happy that we get to spend this time together every week or every month. God bless you. Be well. You're listening to the Leadership Table. I am so excited that you've joined us. Hey, listen, you want to join us in future episodes where we're going to invite some of our greatest friends, some of the greatest leaders we know to share all about their leadership journeys and just add tremendous value to you and your teams. Hey, listen, drop a comment below on your biggest takeaway, that what is impacting you the most. Like it. Share it with those people that you know need to hear this message. And subscribe. And hey, listen, turn on the notifications. I just want to thank you because you are making a difference. As you help us, we help you. And we just divide the work and multiply the impact. My friend, thank you for joining us on the Leadership Table.